Om Sarvadharmasthapakastvam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. We are studying the first part of Sri Ramakrishna Leelaprasanga named Historical Background and Early Life, and we are in the third chapter named The Pious Family at Kamarpukur. And in that, we are studying the evolution of consciousness in Thakur's father, Shudiram Chattopadhyay, how he went on developing his spiritual level and how he had several visions corresponding to those levels. And so, now we have talked about Ramchand. He is a sister's son. And now an event about Ramchand and Chudiram indicative of the trend of his mind is to be described. So we go to para 10. An incident showing Shudiram's devotion to God. Medinipur, where Ramchand was working as leader, is situated about 40 miles southwest of Kamarpukur. 40 miles. That means 64 kilometers. Quite a distance. About 40 miles southwest of Kamarpukur. Having had no news of Ramchandra and his family for a long time, Kshudiram set out one day to see him. That was his custom. It was probably during the month of Magh or Falgun. That is February, January, middle to March middle. That is February, Magh or Falgun. When the Bilwa leaf trees shed their leaves, making the worship of Shiva difficult until new leaves appear. So Bilwa, for the non-Indians, Bilwa is a name of the tree, and the leaves have a peculiar formation of three leaves together, and that is supposed to be dearer to Shiva. And so, those who worship Shiva pour water on his head and put a Bilwa leaf. That much is sufficient for Shiva to be pleased. And so, now when the Bilwa trees shed their leaves, then it is difficult for the worshippers to get fresh leaves till again it gives leaves, fresh leaves. That is the situation described. He started very early and walked steadily on till he reached a certain village about 10 o'clock in the morning. Very early started, 10 o'clock in the morning, he had reached the village. Finding that the willow trees there were already in leaf, his heart leaped in joy, and all thought of proceeding to Medinipur left his mind. So money, Ramchand, health, all vanished. Not that he had lost his memory, we shall see. Not that he had lost his practical intelligence, that also we shall see. Only Bilwa leaves, I want to worship Shiva. So how the devotion? Generally in Narad Bhakti Sutras, there is a sutra, Puja Dishu Anuraga iti Parasharya, that the devotion to God is seen through love in worship. So as a model of that, this is the best example. Bhakti is expressed as love for puja. So in Kshudiram we are seeing that. going to Ramchand, 64 kilometers, because he has no news of him. And because you may add, Ramchand used to send money to him. All that gone from the mind. Imagine this. Again and again I have been telling for all of us that we should imagine the things and compare where we are. Imagine these things happening in our life or similar and think where we are. And when we feel that gap, and then only the attempt to fill up the gap will come. And then only this writing, Saradananda Swamiji's writing, will become meaningful in our life. Kshudiram, the closest associate of Avatar, has been described for the spiritual values in his life. So we read further. His heart leaped in joy and all thought of proceeding to Medinipur left his mind. He bought a new basket. So everything is working in his mind. That means he entered the village, bought a new basket and a piece of cloth and washed them thoroughly in a pond close by. So meticulously he is following or carrying those bilwa leaves back to his house. Then he filled the basket with new bilwa leaves, covered it with wet cloth and returned home. So all that thought of retaining their freshness, etc., is clear in his mind. Reaching them there about 3 in the afternoon. So, say 15 minutes or half an hour he has spent there. So 10:30 to 3. No, that will give us an idea of how early he must have started and so many hours he has walked. Immediately on his arrival, he bathed and then for a long time joyfully worshipped with the leaves the great god Shiva and Shitala, the Divine Mother. So, Devi is also worshipped with bilwa trees. Not until he had finished the worship did he sit down for his meal. So that meal also suspended, Ramchand forgotten. Chandradevi thought this to be the right moment to ask him why he had not gone to Medinipur. So he must have appeared so immersed in the thought of puja that Chandradevi did not ask him. Now when he is sitting for meals and the mind has come to the outside world, she finds it convenient to ask him. When he told her everything, she was amazed to learn that he had come back all that distance solely on account of his eagerness to worship Shiva with the leaves. Shudram started again for Medinipur very early the next morning. So that thought is there, but suspended due to his love for puja. So in this way now, Kshudiram is growing spiritually. The marriages of Ramkumar and Katyayani. So the routine things are going on in his life. The Kshudiram spent 6 years at Kamarpukur. His his son Ramkumar was now 16 years old and his daughter Katyayani 11. That was the age thought proper for marriage. His daughter being of the right age, he gave her in marriage to Kenaram Bandopadhyay, who lived at Anude, a village 2 miles northwest of Kamarpukur, while Ramkumar was married to Kenaram's sister. So that eases the dowry matter. Ramkumar had by then finished his study of Vyakarana, grammar, and Sahitya, literature, in a Sanskrit school near the village, and was now studying Smriti, the laws governing the Hindu society and religion. So, Ramkumar was totally given to Sanskrit studies only. And he has reached this and is starting Smriti. The death of Suklal Goswami and other events. So the world is passing and Kshudiram's spirituality is growing. Another 3 or 4 years passed. By the grace of Sri Raghuveer, Kshudiram was now considerably more prosperous. This word does not appear proper to me. Kshudiram was now considerably more provided for. Kshudiram was now considerably more provided for than before. And free from anxiety, he could give all his time to God. So that vanaprasthi is growing in him, devotion to God is growing in him. Every opportunity he seeks and that devotion grows. During this period, Ramkumar finished the study of Smriti and applied his mind to the best of his ability to the improvement of the family's economic condition. So he was not prosperous. It was about this time that Suklal Goswami, Kshudiram's great friend, passed away. His death caused Kshudiram deep sorrow. All the while, his spiritual level is growing. Kshudiram's pilgrimage to Setubandha, the birth of his son Rameshwar. Setubandha, Rama was at Kishkinda. Rama was in forest and Sita in his absence was carried away by Ravana to Sri Lanka. And we do not know, Rama did not know where she has gone. So while searching for her, they reached Kishkinda, where he met Sugriv, Hanuman and all that. And then he sent various parties to search for Sita. And Hanuman searched her out in Sri Lanka. And when he brought that news to Ramachandran, he took the help of Sugriva's monkey army and they all reached Rameshwar. Now this Rameshwar is like an island from India. But they reached it. And now from there, they have to proceed to Sri Lanka. And so at the tip of Rameshwar, Sri Lanka may be about 16 miles or so. And so they had to build a bridge there. So the point from where the bridge was built is called Setubandha. And there is a temple of Shiva worshipped by Rama and Sita. So that is called Rameshwar, the Lord worshipped by Rama. So that place is also called Setubandha Rameshwar. So there he has reached. On pilgrimage, where is Kamarpukur and Hooghly? But that is the zest in the mind of Kshudiram. So, taking long pilgrimages. Another beautiful point is coming through this between the lines, that people in India, how much difference of language is there? Where is Bengali? And language changes at every 25-30 kilometers. And so how far is Rameshwaram? So that Tamil language is totally different, alien to the Bengalis. But that is the beauty of India, the spiritual nation. That these language differences do not matter at all when they take pilgrimages. I shall tell you something associated personally. We were in Madhya Pradesh and an illiterate man used to come to our house for sweeping, cleaning the vessels and like that. Shankar Lal was his name. And he had gone to Rameshwaram. So, language was no barrier. India as a nation was India the nation, fully spiritual. So that I remembered, and then I said that Shudiram, Calcutta to Rameshwaram, and he has gone on foot. So that is another beauty. So there, behind the temple, there is a Dharmashala, and there Shudiram has supposed to have stayed. Anyway, so Setubandha, he now had a great yearning to go on a pilgrimage because to see God in different forms and associated with Rama is Ishtadevata. And before long, probably in AD 1824, this probably you have seen already, he started on foot for Setubandha Rameshwar. His visit to the places of pilgrimage in South India took him a year. So when one goes so far, one visits the place of pilgrimage on the way also. So that is why he mentions his visits to the places of pilgrimage in South India took him a year, after which he returned home. With him he brought a Banalinga, a symbol of Shiva from Setubandha. From the ocean, special stones are available which are for worshipping Shiva, and they are called Banalinga. Because it is supposed that Banasura, a great devotee of Shiva, worshipped with 1 crore of such lingas. And when the puja was over, he immersed them in the ocean. So a stone with particular marks is known as Baneshwar, and that type of stone is available in the ocean. So from there, Shudiram brought one Baneshwar back to his house. Because the devotees of Rama usually, Rama is connected with Shiva in so many ways. So the devotees of Rama usually worship Shiva also. And so he brought that Baneshwar. He brought a Banalinga, a symbol of Shiva, from Setubandha, which he began to worship daily. This Banalinga named Rameshwar. So because he has brought it from Rameshwar, he called that Banalinga Rameshwar. Can be seen even today near the Shaligrama stone of Raghuveer and the water jar symbolizing the goddess Shitala. A long time after the birth of her second child, Chandra Devi gave birth to another son in AD 1826. I have previously seen that. In memory of his recent pilgrimage, Kshudiram named this son Rameshwar. Thakur's next elder brother. Ram Kumar possessed a supernatural power. Now, so many aspects of spirituality in all the family members of Kshudiram are being narrated. The next 8 years showed little change in the tenor of life of that poor family. Poor is mentioned, so don't think prosperous. In the poor family at Kamarpukur, Ramkumar now earned money by advising people on religious matters on the authority of Smriti and by performing various religious ceremonies, Shanti, Swasthyan and all that. In consequence, the family did not feel the same want as before. That is the true description. He became expert in the performance of those rites and is said to have obtained a supernatural power to make them effective. Because of his concentration of the mind, because of the innate spirituality of that family, study of the scriptures had given him faith in the worship of Shakti. So they were Rama devotees, but study of scriptures told him about Shakti, the primordial power personified in whose mantra he was initiated by a qualified teacher. He had a wonderful vision one day while worshipping this goddess, who had become his chosen deity. He felt as if she was marking with her own finger on the tip of his tongue some mantra letters which made him perfect in astrology. That is Jyotisha Shastra. Astrology connects his stars and future telling. But this is directly seeing some signs for future telling. So how far astrology is the correct translation, you have to think about. That is science of telling the future of man. Henceforward, whatever he asserted would come true. Simply by looking at a patient, whatever he said was true is not Vaksiddhi. Huh? That is associated with Bhishma and other people. But here, it is the knowledge of the future by studying some science that he could tell correctly. He could know whether he would be cured or not, looking at a patient. Simply by looking at a patient, he could know whether he would be cured or not. He acquired some fame in those parts for predicting future events. It is said that on seeing a person suffering from a severe disease, he would start performing propitiatory rites for his recovery and would say emphatically, so practical knowledge of the propitiatory rites coupled with his future telling. He would say emphatically, as soon as the grains I am now sprinkling over the place of worship began to sprout, so this is a particular ceremony. This person will recover. No direct connection, but that is a way of telling. He knows how long will it take that to sprout, and approximately in the same time, the person will recover. And as a matter of fact, what he said actually came true. His nephew, Shivaram Chattopadhyay, that is the son of Rameshwar, junior son, told us the following story as an illustration of this power. An illustration of that power. Being in Calcutta on business, Ramkumar was bathing in the Ganga one morning when a rich man and his family also came for a bath. The man's wife was seated in a palanquin, which was taken to the river so that she could take her bath. That was the custom among the rich people, that she should not be seen by others. So sitting in the palanquin, that palanquin is immersed in Ganga by the carriers, and she takes bath there. Coming as he did from a village, so this custom does not hold to the village. Ramkumar had never seen a woman bathing in this way, protected from public gaze. Looking at the palanquin with wonder, he happened to catch a sight of the woman's face for a moment. He instantly knew through his supernatural power that she would die the next day. So patient's recovery, and she is not a patient, but looking at the face, he could know she would die. So actually stars are not coming here in the picture. And was so overcome by the thought that he could not help muttering sadly to himself, alas, the body which today is being bathed with such formality will tomorrow be immersed as a corpse in the Ganga and disposed of in the sight of all. So, Jala Samadhi. The rich man overheard this. He was talking to himself, but out of wonder he spoke it loudly. The rich man overheard this, and in order to test the truth of his words, pressed Ramkumar to come to his house. His real intention was to teach him a good lesson in case his prediction proved false. The young woman was in perfect health, and there was no indication whatever at that time of such a mishap. But since what Ravkumar had predicted actually came to pass, the man finally could not but let him go in peace. So, that is the incident described by Shiva Kumar, Rameshwar's younger son, and so Sadhana Swamiji has put it here. Now, believe it or not, this is a fact of life. Many people will say credulousness and hundreds of things, but Saradan Swamiji has described only which he knew to be true. An incident concerning Ramkumar's wife, another illustration of that power. So, he predicted something about his wife also. We have seen this in the other volumes, that as soon as she gives birth, she will die. Once looking into his wife's future, Ramkumar made a sad prediction which later came true. So, in a connected way, that is Saradan Swamiji's style. Though this is a future event, he has put it here because the similar power is there. She is said to have had auspicious mark. From the very day he married her and brought her home, the wheel of the fortune took a happy turn. She was then 7 years old, and it was probably in AD 1820. It was from this time that the improvement in his father's circumstances began, for just then the monthly help from his nephew Ramachandra of Medinipur began to come in. Members increased, so he sent 15 rupees per month. Naturally, anyone who on entering the home of a Hindu family brings such good luck is looked upon with love and respect. So these are all the Hindu faith. Undeniable. Moreover, since Ramkumar's child wife was then the only daughter-in-law of the family, it is not surprising that everyone made much of her. That means loved and pampered her. We are told that in spite of her good qualities, too much of indulgence and attention made her touchy and obstinate. But although these defects were noticed by all, no one ventured either to mention them or to correct her. For everyone overlooked her little effects, remembering that she had brought prosperity to the family since the day of her coming. But when she was grown up, Ramkumar one day looked at her and predicted that although she had auspicious mark, she would die if she should ever conceive. If she should ever conceive, then she would die. When he found, however, that this did not happen, that means she was taken to be a barren woman. For several years, he thought that she was barren and felt relieved because she will not die. But at the age of 35, quite long, she did conceive. And the following year, AD 1849, she passed away after giving birth to a very beautiful male child. The boy was named Akshay. Chronologically, this incident comes much later, but we have narrated it here for the sake of convenience, for the continuity of any power or any such incident. The distinguishing feature of Khudiram's family. So this is a distinguishing feature. Some form of spiritual evolution is seen. A peculiar characteristics of a divine and subtle kind was shared by every one of Khudiram's pious household. It is probably because this characteristic was manifest to a marked degree in Khudiram, probably hereditary, and his wife, that it was inherited by their children. The hereditary is not directly accepted, but people of the similar nature are born in conducive families. Since we already mentioned several instances of relating to Kshidiram, it will not be out of place if we relate similar event regarding Chandramani. So, though distinguished feature of Kshidiram's family, yes, okay. So, it is about Chandramani. This will show how Chandramani also, like her husband, saw divine visions from time to time. Her spiritual level also was growing. The event took place shortly before Ramkumar was married. So chronology is not there, connectivity is there. The 15-year-old boy was then studying in a Sanskrit school and at the same time trying to help the family by performing worship in various homes. So he would be giving some remuneration and that would help the family. So even he was studying, he was earning. Chandra Devi had a spiritual vision. Once in the month of Ashwin month, Vaishak, Jeshta, Achad, Shravan, Bhadrapad, Ashwin. So October. Once in the month of Ashwin, Ramkumar had gone to a house at Bursubo to perform the evening worship of the goddess Lakshmi. Bursubo of that Manik Bandopade. Manik Raja. Manik Chattopadhyay was Manik Raja. That landlord is different. When that is Ramananda Rai is very different. Manik Chattopadhyay. That is, I have to find out. That is Manik Bandopadhyay of Bursubo at that mango grew. So that Bursubo. And this evening worship of the goddess Lakshmi. Evening worship means some special occasion for that Lakshmi Puja. October, so it might be the what we call the Kojagiri Lakshmi, which is after the Durga Puja. When her son did not return home, though it was past midnight, Chandra became very restless and coming out of the house waited for him anxiously. While looking in the direction from which he was to come, she saw a lone figure approaching by the field path leading from Bursovo to Kamarpukur, not by the highway. Thinking that it was her son, she went in a few steps forward in great joy to meet him. When the person drew nearer, she found that it was not Brahmkumar, but a very beautiful girl, bedecked with various ornaments. So a goddess. As Chandra was full of fear that something had happened to her son, the sight of a respectable girl walking thus at dead of night did not strike her as something strange. The thought was on Ramkumar. She just went up to her and called out, "Where do you come from, my child?" The girl answered, "From Ursubo." Chandra then asked her anxiously, "Did you meet my son Ramkumar? Is he coming back?" It did not cross her mind even for a moment how an absolute stranger like this girl could possibly know her son. But her mind also was simple. The girl replied, comforting her, "I come from the very house where your son went to perform the worship. Do not worry, he will return soon." Hearing this, Chandra felt relieved and became more observant. So the mind came down to level and became more observant. Noticing at last the girl's remarkable beauty and her dress and ornaments of a novel kind, and hearing her sweet voice, she said, "You are so young. Where are you going at this time of the night, wearing such fine ornaments and dress? And what is this strange ornament on your ears?" With a smile, the girl said, "It is called Kundala," and added, "I have yet to go a long distance." Thinking that she was in trouble, Chandra said affectionately, "Come, my child, Rest for the night at our house. Tomorrow you may go at your leisure. No, mother, replied the girl, I must go just now. I will come to your house some other time. Taking leave of her, she went in the direction of the larger paddy stack of the Lahas nearby. Lahas were the next landlords and they had a paddy stack and she went to that side. It is Dhanya Lakshmi, it is called Dhanya Lakshmi. Lakshmi associated with several aspects of our life and Lakshmi associated with grains is called Dhanya Lakshmi. So she is going to that side. Surprised to see her going towards the house of the Lal instead of following the regular path, Chandra thought that she had missed the way. She went after her, but could not find her, though she searched in all directions. That means she merged or vanished in the paddy. So Dhanya Lakshmi. Only came to assure Chandra that Ramkumar is all right. Then recalling what the girl had said, it suddenly dawned upon her that she might have seen the goddess Lakshmi, goddess of wealth. She hastened to her husband and in great excitement told him everything from beginning to end, in great detail. After hearing the whole account, Kshudiram assured her that there was no doubt that the divine goddess Lakshmi had graciously revealed herself to her. Soon after this, Ramkumar returned home and hearing what had happened was filled with wonder. Kshudiram's desire to make a pilgrimage to Gaya. So it increases. But a different cause also is associated with it. We shall see that later. Time passed on and it was now AD 1835. Feeling once again a strong urge to go on a pilgrimage, Kshudiram decided to go to Gaya to perform the rites for his satisfaction of the spirits of his forefather. So, the Vishnu of Gaya is supposed to be the presiding deity over all the Shraddha ceremonies. And to do Shraddha there is a perpetual benefit to the forefathers who live in heaven. So that thought came to him. He was now 60. Still, that did not prevent him from proceeding on foot to the holy abode of Vishnu. Hriday, the son of Kshudiram's niece Hemangini, told us of a strange event which made him undertake this journey to Gaya. What is that event? Hriday's story regarding it. He calls it Hriday's story. He does not, in the end he says, we do not know that is true or not, but he went to Gaya. Once on receiving the news that his daughter Katyayani was seriously ill, Kshudiram went to Anup to see her. She was then about 25 years old. Watching her gestures and manner of talk, he felt convinced that she was possessed by a spirit. So that is another thing. Spirit means a being without the gross body. So it is called a spirit or ghost, if you like to call it. Or sometimes maybe a person elevated called demigod, semigod. Then concentrating his mind on God, he thus addressed it, God or demigod, whatever you be, why do you harass my daughter? Leave her at once and go your way. He had the mother spiritual authority. At this, the spirit got frightened and said in a pleading voice through Katyayani, I will live. Through Katyayani means it is Katyayani which appears to speak, but actual speaker is that spirit. I will leave your daughter's body immediately if you promise to offer a worship for me at Gaya. So they remain ghosts and all that because the proper Shraddha has not been done for them. And if you do it in Gaya, definitely I will get released from this spirit state and will get either a gross body or be born somewhere. So this painful existence will vanish. I will leave your daughter's body immediately if you promise to offer a worship for me at Gaya and thus bring to an end my present miserable condition. I make a solemn promise that the moment you leave your home to do this, she will be free from all trouble. Anticipatory, you are going to Gaya, I will leave this body. Because I have seen that Khudiram is a true speaker. So what he speaks, that he will do. Moved by the suffering of the spirit. So that was the main cause. Khudiram at once said, I will go to Gaya, the abode of Vishnu, as soon as I can, and do as your wish. But it will make me very happy if I get some proof that you actually obtained deliverance after the worship has been offered. So, not so much worried about his daughter now, worried about the plight of the spirit. And so that he has been released from that, how I will know. The spirit replied, I assure you that as proof of my deliverance, I will break down the largest branch of yonder neem tree, Margosa tree, while going away. According to Hriday, it was this incident that made Khudiram go to Gaya. As some time afterwards, the branch of the neem tree suddenly broke. There was no longer any doubt that the spirit had obtained deliverance. The affliction also left Shatyayani. We cannot vouch, Saradananda Swami says, we cannot vouch for the truth of Hriday's story because Saradananda Swami has not experienced that. But there is no doubt that it was about this time that Khudiram went to Gaya. So desire for his forefather Shraddha was definitely there, maybe due to this plight. So that spirit was belonging to Khudiram's ancestor, some. And so, if you release me, get me released, I will release this. And deliberately that might have taken hold of Khudiram's daughter because Khudiram will do the needful. Khudiram's divine dream at Gaya. Now we are concerned with the main point of this story. Sometime during the winter of 1835, Khudiram visited Varanasi, Banaras and Gaya. The footnote tells, some say that Khudiram visited Varanasi much earlier, when he started from Derepur on pilgrimage to Vrindavan. So he was still in Dere, on pilgrimage to Vrindavan and Ayodhya. So Kashi is on that way. When shortly afterwards a son was born and then a daughter 5 years afterwards, he remembered this pilgrimage and named them Ram Kumar and Katyayani. Ayodhya, so Ram Kumar. And Vrindavan, so Katyayani is a Devi worshipped in Vrindavan. Famous Devi, gopis worshipped her and wanted a boon that they should get Krishna as their husband. During the pilgrimage mentioned above, he is said to have visited only Gaya. But that is how he puts more faith in the fact that he went to Varanasi and Gaya. It was the beginning. Varanasi is the famous Kashi. Kashi is situated on the western bank of the Ganga between two small rivers joining Ganga, Varana and Asi. So that portion is holy and that is called Varanasi, from Varanasi. And that English I made Benares. It was the beginning of Chaitra, middle of March, when he reached Gaya, so went in winter. After paying obeisance to Vishwanath, the Lord of the Universe, at Varanasi. He believes this more because the time taken is like that. He came to Gaya at this time of the year, probably because he knew that the spirit of his ancestors would have immense satisfaction if worship was offered at that holy place during spring. So this worship has to be done in Chaitra, and so he reached there at that time. He lived there for about a month, performed all the ceremonies according to the scriptures, and at last offered worship at the lotus feet of Gadadhar. There is no image there, but it is called Gadadhar holding a mace. There are only footmarks there. Because of his great faith, Khudiram experienced unspeakable peace and satisfaction on thus performing the prescribed obsequious rites in honor of his ancestor. That he was able to go to Gaya and do that filled him with great satisfaction and more faith in God. Having fulfilled to the best of his capacity his obligation to his forefathers, so every duty religious he is performing, he was now free from all anxiety. When the thought came to him that the divine Lord had made it possible for an unworthy person like him to accomplish all this, his grateful heart, so satisfaction plus gratefulness, his grateful heart overflowed with a feeling of humility and love such as he had never experienced before. Humility in front of God and love for God. Peace and joy were with him all that day and at night also. Scarcely had he fallen asleep when he had a dream. So yet not a direct vision, though he had seen Shitala before. He saw himself in the holy temple in the act of offering worship to his forefathers at the divine feet of Gadadhar. He once saw his ancestors in luminous celestial bodies, joyfully accepting the pinda. Pinda is the ball of rice which is offered to the forefathers there. Accepting the pinda and blessing him. He could not control his emotion, feeling, and seeing them after what seemed a very long time. Seemed a very long time. That means they had passed away, but he's seeing them. With tears in his eyes and a heart overflowing with devotion, he bowed down to them and touched their feet. The very next moment he found that the temple was filled with a divine light as never seen by him before. His forefathers were standing in the temple on both sides in a reverential attitude with their hands folded, worshipping a wonderful divine being seated happily on a beautiful throne. In a vision, because there only footmarks are there. He had a luminous body, green like the color of new durva grass, looking at Khudiram with benign, affectionate eyes. He beckoned him. Hardly conscious of what he was doing, Khudiram drew near and, full of devotion, prostrated himself at his feet in worship and turned hymns and uttered hymns in praise. Pleased by this worship, that divine being addressed him thus in a sweet voice. So voice is clear. Khudiram, your extraordinary devotion has made me very happy. I bless you, and I will be born as your son and will receive your loving care. So he is not asking any boon. The Lord is pleased and is saying that I will come to your house. Previously he came as a linga and now he is coming in person. And will receive your loving care. On hearing these words, strange even for a dream, Shudram joy knew no bounds. But the very next moment the thought struck him how, being so poor, he could possibly feed and give proper shelter to such an exalted being. This all during that dream. This made him exceedingly sad, and in a voice choked with tears, he said, No, Lord, I am not worthy of such good fortune. Is it not enough that thou hast blessed me by graciously revealing thyself and wishing to be born as my son. This wish itself is enough, he says. If thou wert really to be born as my son, what service can a poor man like me render? Hearing these words full of pathos, that celestial being seemed to become ever more gracious than before. That means arrogance is not there. And said, do not fear, Kshudiram. I will relish whatever you give me to eat. Let my desire be fulfilled. So God wants to come to India, as we have seen, to remove the Dharma Glani, and he has chosen Rudiram's house, as we see throughout this chapter. Do not fear, Kshudiram. I will relish whatever you give me to eat. Let me my desire be fulfilled. Kshudiram had not the heart to say no. When God is talking like this, conflicting emotions like joy and sorrow assailed him with so much force that he could hardly contain himself and lost consciousness. This broke his dream. So in the dream he is becoming unconscious due to joy. Overpowered by the feeling of gratefulness and devotion, Shudiram returned to Kamarpukur. So I've come to the point where, due to Kshudiram's character and feeling of gratefulness and all that, the Lord is coming to his house as his son. So let us get those qualities so that the Lord is born in our hearts. Shudiram returned to Kamarpukur. For quite a while after waking up, Shudiram did not know where he was, but the dream was very vivid. The reality of the dream overwhelmed him. Gradually regaining consciousness of the outside world, he rose from his bed. He was sleeping actually. And recalling the details of the strange dream, viewed it from different angles. What angles? His believing heart was at last convinced that since a divine dream must come true, so dreams are sanskaras, but divine dreams are definitely an exception, where the God or great realized persons are seen, that dream comes to be true. So dream, though Mandukya Karika will tell the falsity of the world with the help of dream, please understand, divine dreams are not included there. His believing heart was at last convinced that since a divine dream must come true, some great soul would soon be born in his house. He was destined, even at that advanced age, to see again the face of a new child. He then decided not to speak of that remarkable dream to anyone till it had actually came to pass. So, reason, what will people say if it fails? A few days later, he bade farewell to Gaya, the abode of Vishnu, and returned to Kamarpukur. It was then the month of April AD 1835. Now, on this side, in the chapter 4, strange experiences of Chandra Devi. Very funny incident that Chandra Devi, Shudiram is not there. So there is no question of sexual cohabitation. And Chandra, another fun, that Vishnu is telling Shudiram will be born as your son. And here Chandra Devi is standing in front of a Shiva temple. And the light from that Shiva temple enters her womb and she feels she has conceived, and that is true. So whether it is an avatar of Vishnu or Shiva, we have to find out. He is avatar of the Parabrahman. That is what it means. So we shall see that gradually in chapter 4 on Monday. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.